my show, Behavioural Problems, something autism, it's both a celebration and reflection of being autistic in the adult world of work. On one aspect, we're looking at the dehumanising experiences I had while working for various hospitals in the NHS, as well as some of the roles I did coming out of university, as well as 2 years in animal research, and the sort of ableist attitudes and experiences I had from those environments. While on the flip side, also involving animal-themed sketches, including the bee, but also a variety of other animals involved as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a reflection and celebration of being autistic. I would say that it is probably maybe 20 or 30% of the show is more just pure animal and sort of silly stuff. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the show is sort of like, even at the start of the show, there's some stuff that's reflected with real interactions in regard to dating. A lot of the sort of stuff in regard to the NHS is a reflection. It is obviously done in an alternative and clowning way, and it is designed to sort of, I am more of a shower than a teller of autism. But then there are parts of it that are also far more personal and less associated with the animal parts of the show, and more reflective of the grim reality of what I experienced. Doing jokes about autism, and writing a show about autism. So prior to the pandemic, I would have never ever wanted to talk about autism, with the exception of if I could do it within my own terms. Now, when the pandemic kicked off, it meant that we were at Zoom gigs. My ability to interact physically with the audience, which is where a lot of my humour and the comedy derives from, because I like to often feed people involved in the games, in my games, has meant that I had to open up and talk about it in different ways. So joking and making things about autism has been fine. The difficult part is that I had to reflect on some of the worst experiences within my life as an adult, leaving my bachelor's. So it's reflecting on what it was like working in an industrial bakery. Obviously it's very difficult to make animal research funny, and I'm not necessarily trying to make it funny in that regard, more trying to drive the humour of that. I definitely came away with it with more damage than I went in. Equally, to also include some of them, unfortunately, some of the worst aspects of the audience. So I do hope the audience will learn, and I can show autism in all its glory and shame. Very much a Oliver Cromwell, warts and all idea of it. I don't think I should shy away from the uglier parts of my experience, nor do I think I should not utilise and talk about some of the experiences and ideas of the sort of way that autism's often given me an access to many different ways of thinking that have allowed me to create the comedy that I do in the first place. My main goal is not necessarily education, it is entertainment. I am an entertainer, I'm a performer. What I'm hoping it might do is it just gives that a little bit more awareness, and maybe even question, hopefully, I mean in the most idealistic way that the show could be, I hope people do question whether our most valued institutions are adhering to the values and morals that they prescribe. The first show was a bit more esoteric in nature, but and was touching of some of these ideas of alienation and othering in society, as well as the internal conflict I often have with myself. So that was called Stephen Catling versus himself and other monsters. I was very proud of that poster design because it was me fighting a version of me dressed as a demon or devil. I did call it other monsters just because if I called it other demons, that would imply that I was talking about drug abuse or alcoholism, and that was not what that show was about. It was very much about more internal things. When we talk about attitudes towards autism, my master's thesis was on the influence that the media has on people's perception of autism. Now, if we look at like the 80s with like Rain Man, that was a lot of people's first concept and introduction to autism, which is not at all reflective. It is one man with what actually has a very niche condition known as Savant syndrome, which is a very small percentage of autistic people. Is a very broad category. One thing that's improving is there is an increase in the diagnosis and awareness of females or people who are born as females with the condition, because so in societal perception there is still this problem that is very much a male, it's seen as a very male or child male condition, or male assigned at birth condition, which is not accurate. And things like that I found out, like is a lot of women who are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder have been misdiagnosed with that, and actually they will have autism or ADHD. So the diagnosis and attitudes of autism is improving, but there are still these limitations in its portrayal and attitudes towards men. We are still also there is still huge. While it's improved in some aspects and people are talking about awareness, so Joe Wells, very good autistic comedian as well, talks like you have LGBT pride, you have Black History Month, but you have autism awareness. Be aware of autism. We're not celebrated in society. We are seen more, I feel like we are seen more as an inconvenience. But this show was one of the 50 selected in the Phoebe Waller-Bridge Keep It Fringe Award bursary. So the Edinburgh Fringe Festival has already looked at my application out of 600 shows and thought, this is something we want to further fund. Equally, and I should mention that I often do this as an alternative comedian. So I am an alternative comedian that has managed to do well in other competitions across the country. So this year I'm doing the finals for Stand Up for Cider in Somerset, and last year I got to 3 different semi-finals for student chortles, the famous student chortle comedian of the year, the South Coast New Comedian, and the Get Up Stand Up Club semi-final.